Melty Blood タイプルミナ。
2021 saw me with a lot more time indoors due to ongoing issues with the global pandemic. I'd always loved fighting games, particularly 2D fighters, though I did play some 3D games like Soul Calibur 2 on the GameCube and Tekken Tags 1 and 2 through my teens and early 20s. Street Fighter 3 and 4 were probably my favourite and most played fighting games, if you don't count Melee, but that's probably another topic. I had a close friend who I would run sets with for hours on end. We were fairly even, neither of us were very good, and had no real drive to improve past our casual skill level. But when Super Street Fighter 4 dropped, something happened. The combination of finally playing more online and becoming aware of the high-level tournament scene for the game, I began to realise how much deeper the game actually went. Fighting games, rightly or wrongly, are very much perceived as a difficult and punishing genre for new players to get into. I think this visibility of the hardcore FGC and high-level competition, the genre's focus towards pure 1v1 combat, the technical and sometimes unintuitive nature of fighting game mechanics and controls, and many games generally having very little single-player focus is a lot of what gives fighting games the perception of being difficult and mechanically complex games, only for die-hard fans willing to grind and put the time in. And then there are anime fighters. This shit is bonkers. What the fuck is a Guilty Gear? What the hell is a Melty Blood? What on earth is Blade Arcus from Shining? What's BlazBlue? Is it pronounced BlazBlue? Why are there 60 characters? What's this character-specific meter? What is a distortion finish? Is that a puppet I'm indirectly controlling? Why does this beloved RPG franchise have a fighting game spin-off that has several thousand mechanics that you need to learn to be competent? Why is the movement like this? What the fuck is an antinomy of common flowers, and why does this game have no flaw? How did I get killed in one hit? Where's Nando's? What's shuffling? And who are the lads? Etc, etc, etc. This world was always too esoteric and techie for me. I always loved the vibe, and I really wanted to get into anime fighters and learn how to be good, but there are only so many hours in a day, and to be honest, in my teens and 20s I was busy making music or partying or studying. I messed around on Guilty Gear XX on the PS2, had fun with arcade mode, seeing how cool characters were, messing around a little bit in training mode, getting bewildered by the fact that one of the buttons is called dust for some reason, and sort of leaving it there. Fun, yeah, perfectly fine, shallow fun, mostly centered around the aesthetic. If someone were to ask me if I like Guilty Gear, I'd have been like, heck yeah, Milia is sick, I love Faust's massive scalpel, the animation is beautiful, and I love how wacky the very Japanese fantasy take on OG heavy metal is. And not, yeah, so the left-right mix you get off Milia's 236H on hard knockdown can also be high-low if you fast-fall with faultless defense after you air dash. Anime fighters are techie, like super techie. And you can have fun with them without learning all of their complex systems, but let's be real, they're made for the hardcore crowd who gets why fighting games don't need a fleshed out single player mode, that a two-player local versus mode, a training mode, and online is basically all you need as far as features go. I am not and never have been a technically gifted fighting game player. I'm good enough to beat anyone who hasn't spent time playing fighting games and is learning the fundamentals like movement, defense, special move inputs. I'm probably a little better than I give myself credit for, but if online has taught me anything, it's that I'm a very average player among people who play whatever game I'm playing semi-regularly. In the old Street Fighter 4 online days, I had a couple of B-ranked characters. In Guilty Gear Strive, I tend to exist between floors 9 and 10, but I haven't achieved Celestial rank. Yet. In Melty Blood type Lumina, I got to A rank whilst playing Akihiro over the first few months and then dropped to B when I switched to Alco as my main. I currently have just over a 50% win rate on King of Fighters 15, on sort of 16 to 20-ish hours of play. And yeah, that's not bad, but I'm not good by these metrics. I'm pooling sort of in the middle ground of possibility in online play. So, how did I get back into these games? How did I learn how little I actually know about the games I'm playing, and begin to start playing and training with more intention in very technical games that demand execution, matchup knowledge, and lots of situational awareness? Well, honestly, slowly, and as a result of simply thinking these games were cool as fuck and wanting to push past the initial execution and information barrier to be competent enough to have fun with them on a slightly higher level than before. Sometimes I want to play a fighting game but don't want to play a fighting game. Like, the urge is there, but I realize that it means getting some combo practice and execution back under my fingers, and almost immediately being thrown into a very intense competitive 1v1 situation, which gets, for want of a better word, stressful. It's a very intense type of fun and reward that is not always immediate and can require some pushing through of barriers, skill ceilings, and knowledge gaps. So, obviously I decided to pick up one of the most systemically dense fighting franchises of all time.
Wifey.
Melty Blood is a 2D anime fighter developed by French Bread, set in the Type Moon universe, based on an adult visual novel about vampires and maids and vampire hunters and whatever. It's absolutely impenetrable, and this is not a synopsis of the Melty lore. This clip from Red Muffler Man about why there are over 10 versions of the same character Shiki should tell you everything you need to know.
Shiki literally has the power to end the fucking universe. Let's also not forget another version of Shiki. From the new version of Melty Blood, we have Panda Shiki. For those that don't know, the panda in Miyako's arc drive is actually Nanaya. So we have 3 Nanayas. Wait, did I say 3 Nanayas? Did I say 3 Nanayas? I meant 4 Nanayas.
It's stupid and I love it. Anyway, the original Melty Blood is a beloved FGC staple that has endured for years due to an insane hardcore following refusing to let their scene die, even when they have to play the top 8 bracket of their tournament in literally a Denny's booth or the venue's public toilet. I'm sorry to everyone who hates this meme, but I fucking love it and it literally got me into Melty, so I don't care if it's a played out joke at this point. Okay, so, until recently the most modern Melty Blood game was the 2011 installation in the series called Melty Blood Actress Again Current Code. I know, stay with me, please. Which was the final update to the original Melty Blood game, first released in 2002. So, in 2021, the Melty Blood scene was still playing a game that was a full decade old. Not only that, but that 10-year-old game was using an engine and a lot of sprites from a game from 2002, making it almost a 20-year-old game that people were still holding tournaments at FGC events for. This really shows how rabid and enduring Melty fans are. Or it shows how deeply degenerate and obsessive fans of the Tsukihime universe can get about their beloved maids and/or Nico arc. I'm honestly surprised that a game like Blade Arcus, which has 2 fully catgirl playable characters as well as a hench furry, hasn't endured in the same way. But maybe I'm overestimating the obsessive nature of the FGC weeb and furryverse. God damn it, I'm so off topic. Okay, so Melty Blood Actress Again Current Code is a game in which the developers were asked, what kind of systems would you like in this game? To which they responded, yes. It's a 4-button fighting game with a light, medium, and heavy attack, as well as a dedicated shield button. Easy, as you might expect from an anime fighter. Light attacks can cancel into mediums, into heavies, and then into specials or launchers for air combos. Got it? Great! But wait, in this game you can cancel any normal attack on hit or block into any other, regardless of its strength. What? I know, sounds broken, right? But you can't use the same attack more than once in a single string. Thank God. But you can use the same string multiple times if it's broken up by a special move, like with H-Scion's Whip Loop. Wait, H-Scion? What's an H-Scion, you ask? Well, every character in this game is actually 3 characters. That's not a joke. If you want to pick a character, you have to decide between their crescent moon, half moon, and full moon incarnations, who basically all have completely different animations and properties for everything and radically different playstyles as well as differing magic circuit properties. What's a magic circuit? I'm so glad you asked! Magic Circuit is the game's meter system, and depending on the version of the character you choose, you will have a different number of pips to your meter to use for EX special moves and arc drive moves. Yes, I will explain arc drive moves, but first I have to tell you about heat and blood heat modes, which activate based on various conditions, again relating to your character's moon type. When in these states, your character will regenerate recoverable health and have access to as much meter as you can use before the timer on the gauge runs out. There is also blood heat, which activates under certain conditions, again contingent on your character's moon type, and when in this mode you can use your devastating last arc attack by EX shielding one of your opponent's attacks. Wait, we're back on shielding. This is a dedicated button which, oh for fuck's sake, you get the idea. And I haven't even talked about defensive systems or movement, which is kind of the most distinctive thing about Melty. But look, Why would anyone subject themselves to learning all of this for a game that is kept alive by a relatively small community of hardcore fans, most of whom have been playing the game for a decade and will evaporate your life bar in seconds? Not to mention the fact that to play online you need to get a community mod of the game with netcode and join the Discord to find matches. Well, in 2021, a brand new Melty Blood game came out, and in the lead up to its release, I decided to finally actually try out Actress Again Current Code in prep for the new game. And, oh lord, it took me days and multiple sessions to win my first game of Melty Blood AACC. The movement was like nothing else I'd ever experienced. I found the neutral game and hit confirming very difficult, and when I finally did score a clean hit, I would instantly panic and drop the combos that I'd been practicing in training mode. But I worked at it. I'm actually telling this story out of order because I had just started playing Guilty Gear Strive also, and becoming familiar with some anime fighter mechanics really emboldened me to try Melty Blood. But rather than put me off, getting destroyed by Melty Blood online Discord warriors who have been playing for ages actually drove me to improve that little extra bit to a point where I could learn from being beaten, and find out what areas I could improve most urgently to stop the beatings from being so one-sided. Learning some block strings, getting more consistent with combos, understanding air movement and how to land hits, and it worked, somewhat. But really the reason I got hooked on Melty was its aesthetics. Or to be more exact, its basic appearance in combination with its bonkers air movement and visceral speed. It's the most normal looking anime fighter. Like, some of these characters look so inconspicuous by the standards of the genre. For example, compare this normal maid to this techno-futurist cat girl from Chaos Code New Sign of Catastrophe. Or compare this innocuous schoolgirl to whatever this is. It's generally not dripping with wild costumes like Guilty Gear. Its deceptively normal visuals makes its berserk movement and utterly broken character powers pop even harder. It's why I main Alco, literal normal anime woman in jeans and a t-shirt who can fly and holds the power of some orb-casting deity. Huge vibe. And honestly, that's what got me hooked. I love how dripless Melty is. It's an aspect that some people complain about, but for me it's the thing that makes it stand out from every other anime title. Low-key normal, high-key weird as fuck. God damn, I've spent forever talking about Actress Again Current Code when this is supposed to be about Type Lumina. Okay. Type Lumina is the brand new Melty Blood game that came out in 2021, a decade after Actress Again Current Code, and builds on the engine that French Bread have used for the Under Night In-Birth games. Please don't ask. I can't do another tangent. Please, please don't ask. Under Night In-Birth EXE Latest is another 2D anime fighter by French Bread Studio. Okay, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna do it. Wait. What? There's a 2020 update to Under Night In-Birth called EXE Late CLR. What? What the fuck? I literally can't even exaggerate the multiple suffix versions of these games and their obscene development cycles. Good God, I'm gonna kill myself. Why did I choose this life? Oh my God. Okay, so, Melty Blood Type Lumina. Here's where my personal perspective comes in. Picking up Guilty Gear Strive when it launched got me more curious and confident about playing anime fighters, which piqued my interest in Melty Blood when a new game was announced, which made me check out Actress Again Current Code in the lead up to Type Lumina to build up a bit of familiarity with the series. And when Type Lumina dropped, I binged it harder than any other new game I'd bought at release for ages. Getting to grips with the mechanics, trying to find a main that suited me, bouncing between training mode and online ranked matches, losing a lot, struggling with the movement and the neutral initially, snatching a few wins, watching day one B&B combo videos for Red Arc, trying to practice a combo that I didn't really understand the mechanics of. I wasn't as immediately adept at the game as I wanted to be. The shield mechanic I still find difficult to really incorporate into my strategy. What to do on wake up, what to do after a knockdown, finding all the constantly available options very exhausting, forgetting to use Moondrive, and getting hits in neutral that convert into combos I also found very difficult to get to grips with. But that very much changed by just playing more. So anyway, after a far too long preamble, why don't I finally start on a personal review of Type Lumina. TL is a game with so much potential that I really love. I'm very hopeful for its future, but I'm not blind to its issues. I would say I think it's not quite as good or deep a game as Actress Again Current Code, but I play it much more regularly. Maybe that's because the Actress Again Current Code fanbase is a hyper-refined Discord population of veterans who have a 10-year head start with the game, and finding players of an even comparable skill level is much rarer. Or maybe it's because, even as a bewildering high-speed anime fighter with 6 trillion system mechanics to learn, TL somehow manages to be a little more forgiving and inviting. Inviting for an anime fighter. Like, it's not Fantasy Strike, it's not Dive Kick, But in Type Lumina, it's relatively easy to get acceptable damage bread and butter combos without having to understand and execute at the highest level. All the characters that I've tried have a relatively simple route in dealing 3000-ish damage and ending with a hard knockdown using no meter, and you can get at least 3.5k using 1 bar. Obviously this isn't optimal damage output, and you want to start incorporating some tight links with charge normals, re-jump, air combos, and very smart special move and moon skill usage to get yourself a lot more damage. But a starting point of 3k damage for a BMB with a hard knockdown off some pretty basic execution is a nice foundation to have in a game. Also, this is the best incorporation of auto combos I've ever seen in any game. I don't care what you think, I usually do not fuck with auto combos either, but in this game they are so modular and open that they can function as a kind of low effort stand-in for a more difficult part of the combo that you haven't yet committed to muscle memory, rather than just being a one-size-fits-all option for low damage, low execution beginner handholding. Auto combos, or rapid beats in this game, work in two ways. On the ground you can mash either A, B, C to get a magic sequence that ends in a launcher and your character will follow them into the air, and then mashing A, B or C in the air will give you a shorter sequence that ends in an air throw, one of the game's more reliable ways of securing a hard knockdown and setups for pressure. If you just rely on these auto combos, you'll deal terrible damage and be at a severe disadvantage in terms of the amount of damage that you will deal versus your opponent. But these rapid beats are very open to a wealth of possibilities, extensions and cancels. Firstly, they can be incorporated into a standard series of cancels or any reverse beat. So you could confirm off 2A and then run 2B, 2C, then hit 5A, B, C and then keep mashing C to get a rapid beat into launcher, and from there follow up with a BC jump cancel, BC air throw. I found this approach to auto combos really helpful when I was learning longer combos with some trickier moments, and having a period where you could just mash one button a few times before the next segment gave me a chance to stay on top of the execution. There was an easy confirm into grounded auto combo I used to do after hitting Akia's back moon skill in neutral, that would then lead into an air combo to EX wheel, super jump BC air throw for decent damage off a stray hit in neutral that gave you a lot of time to adjust and get your composure in a real match. The nice thing about having this option though is that it rarely seems to be the optimal route, so later when I was thinking about how I could improve it, I found that this combo could do more damage without the rapid beat, but would require a much quicker reaction to hit confirm in an actual match. It's like the game gives you a massively variable set of possible routes that are mostly balanced to reward higher execution with more damage and better position, but where the easier options aren't so far behind the more advanced options that it becomes a sweaty execution kusoge where you need to learn Touch of Death combos that contain several one-frame links. Quick side note, the type of numerical notation I've been using is common to anime fighters. I first learned about it when I was trying to learn more about Guilty Gear. The premise is you map a 1 to 9 grid over the positions where a joystick can be to get precise shorthand terms for all sorts of motion inputs. So 2C, for example, is crouching heavy attack. 236A is quarter circle forward light attack. 421B is dragon punch backwards and a medium attack. 41236C is half circle forwards heavy. It's a little bit cumbersome, but I do get the application of it and understand why it's the generally accepted standard language for anime fighters. So the combo system in Melty Blood Type Lumina is good. It's very open, there are a lot of options, and its auto combo rapid beat system makes things more digestible as opposed to just offering a crutch that beginners will lean on too hard. I sometimes have problems with getting a rapid beat when I don't want one, but that issue is largely comparable to getting missed or dropped inputs in games that don't have a system like that, so it really just depends on which issue you'd prefer to run into. Personally, I see both approaches as valid, so the mild frustration of occasionally having to go down a lower damage combo route because I fluffed my series of inputs doesn't irritate me too much. I'd probably find it a little less annoying than attempting a tricky link in Street Fighter and either getting absolutely nothing because you were too early or being blocked because you were too late. I get why people prefer the brutality of the latter approach, the be perfect or lose advantage type beat. That's not to say you can't drop combos in Type Lumina, of course you can, and I do regularly, but more that there's a system in place that makes mistiming or fluffing your execution often result in a less dramatic form of punishment.
Wifey.
Melty's movement is also still a thing to behold, and in my view is the aspect of the game that really sets it apart from everything else. There is so much control, it's so fast and so responsive. In a strange way, it almost has more in common with Smash Bros. Melee's movement than it does with something like Street Fighter. While not as completely freeform and physicsy as Melee's aerial movement, Type Lumina does have features like momentum preservation and aerial drift, which in combination with double jumps, super jumps, and air dashes make for an unmatched level of frenetic character control in a traditional 2D fighter. One of the game's secondary mechanics embellishes this emphasis on rapid aerial movement in a brilliant way. When in the Moon Drive state, all characters gain an extra double jump or air dash. This, in my opinion, is genius because of how jumping and air dashing reacts with the game's other systems. It obviously gives you a huge buff in neutral since now you have an extra aerial change of direction to outmove or outspace your opponent. It's a great defensive tool if you need to escape the corner, it's a great offensive tool if you need to extend an aerial combo, particularly from straight aerial hits since now you have an extra jump cancel to work with. Or you could combo into an air throw hard knockdown as normal and leave yourself with one extra air jump or air dash to apply better pressure on the opponent's wake up. By making aerial movement extremely important to the core game, the developers have made it so that by giving you more of it as a temporary buff state in Moon Drive, it multiplies the possibilities of what you can do with your character by naturally extending the systems that are already in play. To begin with, you don't need to learn anything radically new to make Moon Drive useful, because it just gives you more access to elements of the game that are already extremely important. Very unlike how in Street Fighter V you often have to learn a character's V-trigger as a separate thing to how they play in their normal unbuffed state. I like the meter in Type Lumina too, or Magic Circuit as it's called in the game. Both players start with 3 pips of meter, and if you lose a round you are given access to an extra pip, which in turn gives you access to your level 4 Last Arc Super, which can be accessed either through shielding an attack in Blood Heat, or by just flat out burning all 4 meters for one massive cinematic attack. Meter builds fast and is very useful for extra damage and extending combos, so over the course of a match you'll be burning and building a lot of meter, and that feels good. The Moon Gauge is also good. It's the little gauge up here that controls Moon Drive as I discussed earlier, but also Moon Skills, which are basically EX versions of your character's normal special moves, but that are done with easy directional inputs so they become very powerful due to their buffed abilities and instant access. Activating Moon Drive, as well as giving your character an extra double jump or air dash, and the ability to perform moon skills for as long as the gauge lasts, also gives you a brief pause state, which makes that a very powerful defensive wake-up option. Burning Moon Drive on wake up, for example, gives you a split second to assess what your opponent is doing and then act accordingly. You can do this when you have 50% or more Moon Gauge, so essentially when you have half or more of this gauge, you get a chance to pause on wake up and quickly see what your opponent's mix-up is so you don't get steamrolled quite so brutally. Heat and Blood Heat return from Actress Again current code, but are slightly different this time. These are buff states that give you access to your Arc Drive Super and turn your meter into a timer, ticking down to depletion. Activating this state will blow the opponent back, so it's a very good defensive option if you're under serious pressure from the opponent. But it can be shielded, so there's a very tense guessing game around heat activation and shielding that's kinda like a game of rock, paper, scissors within a game of rock, paper, scissors.
Every single one.
Oh! Alright.
Heat is tied to your magic circuit and can be activated when you have 1 or more meters built. The more meter you have, the longer the state will last, and if you pop it with a full 4 meters, then you activate Blood Heat mode, where your shield becomes the most dangerous weapon in the game, automatically unleashing your last arc when absorbing an attack, so it completely changes how your opponent will play against you. In both states, you also build back your recoverable health, making heat activation super important in the latter stages of rounds. If you've built up a load of meter and lost a lot of health, activating heat can often be the catalyst for making a successful comeback. There's also very little as satisfying as baiting an opponent's heat activation, punishing hard, and leaving them with no meter for the next round. I imagine it's kind of akin to landing a counter breaker in Killer Instinct. It's very much a "I knew you were gonna do that" type moment. Blood Heat in particular is a pretty interesting state to play and play against. It doesn't happen every match, it can be quite rare because of how resource intensive it is, but it completely changes the flow of a match and puts the onus of engagement somewhat on the opponent, since you can't just sit there and let them recover all their health, but you also can't go in all guns blazing or you'll just get shielded and die in a cinematic blaze of glory. So you have to be tricky, be sneaky, use grabs, fake high and go low, fake low and go aerial, play around their shield. And speaking of which, then there's shielding. I genuinely think this is my biggest gripe with the game. I don't hate it, but I don't like it in its current state. A lot of criticism about shielding that I've heard says that it's too strong overall as a mechanic, and that makes the game sometimes feel like it's two people playing game mechanics against game mechanics rather than character versus character and player versus player. And I think I agree with this criticism generally. I've been in so many matches where I've been unprepared for how the opponent will use their shield and either lost or won as a result of being unable to adapt in time or managing to play around it. The sets of Melty that feel the best is when the shield mechanics and counter systems attached to them are used sparingly, but a lot of the time you'll run into people who base their whole playstyle around when and how they use shield and what follow-ups they rely on. To go back a few steps, shield has its own dedicated button, D, and you can press it either while standing or crouching or airborne. Jumping attacks and overheads beat low shield, and all shields lose to throws. Shields can be held through multi-hitting moves, and if you successfully shield an attack, you can follow up with one of 3 counter-attacks. C is a launcher that leads into an air combo. B is an overhead that goes behind the opponent and can lead to a ground bounce combo. And pressing B and C simultaneously is a dash attack type move that consumes moon gauge and leads to a follow-up combo that can be clashed by the initial attacker by pressing B and C also. It's basically another rock paper scissors game within another rock paper scissors game within another rock paper scissors game. And that's not mentioning other shield mix-ups like no follow-up, low, or no follow-up grab. My gripe with this system is that it's bizarrely powerful and high risk simultaneously. It's very YOLO and becomes quite an all-consuming mechanic that has a huge impact on the rest of the game, and certainly not always in a good way. It can be really hype. I've seen sets where you can tell that one player is in another's head, and this mechanic can really exemplify that. A well-timed shield or counter that totally tilts an opponent can be absolutely beautiful. But in my experience, more often than that, it becomes a fairly powerful exploit that gets overused and needs to be played around a lot. There's always an answer to shielding, but if someone is doing it a lot and basing their entire playstyle around it, it's like you have to make reads on when and how they'll shield and how to punish it, which feels like you're playing against the shield mechanic itself and not the other member of the cast. I think that there are innumerable ways to potentially improve this, and I believe that it will be in future versions of the game. I'm not going to speculate or offer any opinions on how it could be made better in this video, but it is the main area where I feel the game really needs improving. Oh, and weeks after I wrote this, they decide to buff shield. Fantastic, guys. Great job, devs. Aesthetically, I love this game, and it's gotten better with the addition of Aoko and her stages, which are absolutely stunning. It's really nice to see a visually polished modern fighting game using sprites. Yes, ArcSys games are a gold standard for anime fighting game presentation at the moment, but I think there's definitely still room for real sprites in 2D fighters, and Melty looks amazing. I love how dripless a lot of the base roster is. I love the insanity of the movement. I love how mad and air-based the fighting is in contrast with the relatively subdued character designs and stages. A normal maid and schoolboy fighting in the air at breakneck speeds with energy beams, yes thanks. I don't think it's as iconic as Actress Again Current Code. Maybe I'm a sucker for low-res sprites and MS Paint looking backdrops, but the original Melty has something I think not quite yet captured in Type Lumina. But it's good that it's different. Type Lumina is definitely a wider game. They've really made use of the widescreen aspect ratio. Actress Again Current Code has smaller sprites and a 4:3 aspect ratio, and because of how air-based the combat is, the stages are almost as tall as they are wide, making it seem like you're fighting in a giant square, which I don't know why I like that, but I do. It's weird. It's just one of those uniquely compelling oddities, I guess, that's so specific to the original Melty Blood. I have a wish list for Type Lumina. It's not a vast wish list, but it's an important set of things that could propel the game to being one of my faves of all time if they get it right. There are some notable missing characters that really need to turn up in future DLC packs or updated incarnations of Melty Blood Type Lumina, Sigma variant, Final Carrier. Obviously we need Ryogi Shiki, Nero Chaos, Warakia, Scion Eltnum, Len, Stridberg, Archetype Earth, and Nico Arc. But also a few character variants wouldn't go amiss either. Nanaya Shiki, Vermilion Akia, Nico and Mech Hisui, whatever, this game is stupid, give me Panda Shiki, I don't care, more stupid shit. The main thing I want is Scion Eltnum with whip loops, Nero Chaos and Warakia, The freaks, basically. Give me the beret girl with a gun and the two most evil men ever. Very fun and silly, yes, yes, yes. I would like to see some nerfs to the shield system. I don't know exactly what. Maybe mid-looking attacks could break low shield, or charge attacks have shield break properties, or shielding slowly drains your magic circuit, or there could be a separate shield meter that depletes during use and builds back up slowly, or maybe some combination of any of those that work together. I'm not a game developer, and I think that there's a lot that I don't realize about what impact those suggestions would have on the game. But I do feel like the suggestion of fully charged charge attacks breaking shield could be the start of a solution to the shield issue. Another side note, I recently had a bit of a breakthrough in training mode practicing some shield options, and it has somewhat demystified the strategies for shield play, but not entirely. I still struggle against opponents who abuse shield for some reason. I don't quite know why, but something about the mechanic in its entirety in real match play just short-circuits my mental stack. The only thing I can liken it to is kinda like playing against online Ken, the Street Fighter phenomenon of basic online Ken players spamming Shoryuken and Tatsu and somehow ruining your life with that predictable and totally unsafe strategy, lol. Somehow in Melty I can just disintegrate against people who wake up shield every time. No, it's not quite that bad. I have a few strategies to deal with it now, but I'm definitely exploitable in that aspect of the game. But I do have a sense of how to practice shield options now. Also, oh my god, practicing situational combos is a thing I've started doing too. It really does feel like I'm getting a bit deeper into the game, having noticed some of my weaknesses in matches, where I've been losing damage, like in situations where people have been able to tech out of combos consistently, and finding ways in training mode to not leave so much damage on the table and keep pressing my advantage when I have it. With Alco, I was finding that my standard B&B combos would be tech-outable if they started with either of her orb moves, which are good options for pinning the opponent down on wake up. This often meant that I would lose advantage and damage after hitting one mix-up on knockdown because I didn't understand that I should be adapting my combo route to specifically work with an orb opener. This is something I didn't even know to practice until I was almost 100 hours deep into the game, so just bear in mind that this isn't necessarily something to practice in week 1 unless you're a seasoned fighting game player, in which case you've probably already played the game. I feel like maybe getting into option select is the next stage after I'm comfortable with situational combo variants and effective shield play, but that's just a hunch. Anyway, back to the Type Lumina wishlist. The online, oh my god, I haven't even mentioned this yet. Yeah, just implement better netcode and make sure it's rollback and not this slightly weird hybrid that the game currently has. I've had good games, but I've also had a lot of bad ones, which is definitely partially an issue with the netcode and partially an issue with the game having a small player base. So a lot of the time you can only find matches where your opponent is halfway around the world in China or Japan or America. And for some reason there are no other European anime degenerates absolutely slamming ranked matches. Everything else is great. Like, I don't care about single player modes and story stuff. I've barely played story mode. I've never touched survival mode. Wait, hold on. Does this game even have a survival mode? Maybe make the drip edit mode a bit more customizable, like CVS2's color edit mode? Let us pick from a full color wheel and go absolutely crazy with it. Fuck it, come on, like, that would be heavy. And from here it's all nitpicky. I love Type Lumina. It's not 100% there yet, but if its next steps are the right ones, it may be my favorite fighting game of all time in the coming years. It'll never be the biggest or most popular, sadly. It's too degenerate and weeby, but I do think it can endure like the original Melty Blood and cultivate a cult-like player base and tournament scene that never tire of its crazy movement and batshit anime waifu cockfighting. Wait. There is one more thing, and it's a very weird kind of minor cosmetic problem with a couple of very specific characters. Alternate versions of characters in Type Lumina are not as aesthetically distinct as they were in Actress Again Current Code. I felt this when I was first trying to learn Red Arcade, or Wark as she's known in the scene. Yes, she has the long dress, but it's missing the absolute deranged evil face and the bloodshot / black eyes, sharp teeth and crazy grin that she had in Actress Again Current Code. Instead, in Type Lumina, Wark is just the same face with a slightly more sinister expression, a bit of an evil grin, and that's it. I didn't know if this trend would continue as more alternate characters were eventually added to the roster, so I reserved judgment on this, but now with the addition of Powered CL, it's clear that the trend is somewhat continuing. It helps that Powered CL has a massive gun and whip type sword thing, and has changed out of her standard clergy outfit. But she is missing her tattoos and markings from the previous game, kinda like how Wark is missing her unhinged face. I do kinda hope these extra flourishes find their way into future updates, but this is a very minor point. Okay, so let's take a step back, because while Melty Blood is the series that I've spent the most time playing recently, it's not the game that got me digging deeper into this genre. So in the next video, let's talk about Guilty Gear Strive. Or rather, let's avoid talking about Guilty Gear Strive for as long as possible, while I apologetically explain why I never got into Xrd Rev 2 and had to be convinced by Strive that I could properly sink some time into a Guilty Gear game. But that's a story for the next video. Thanks for watching the first video of whatever this is. If you made it this far, please do give the vid a like, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment, but most importantly, if you like the video, share it with someone who you think might enjoy it. Post it to any forums or servers you're a part of that discuss fighting games, and have a conversation about Melty. Word of mouth and community is really important when it comes to getting content out, and I'd love for this to reach everyone who might find it of interest. If this does some numbers, I'll likely prioritize the next 2 videos in the series and come out with them a lot quicker. As you can see by everything else in my channel, the long-form video essay isn't my go-to format, so we'll see if there's any demand for this to continue into new subjects in the future. I have a Patreon now, it's very bare bones, but if you'd like to support, go to patreon.com/phonewifey. Follow me on socials, listen to my music on streaming services, download it on Bandcamp, and find me occasionally on twitch.tv/phonewifey playing Melty Blood. Peace.